Xie JunHao had a strategist. Disguised as a man, she offered him counsel by day and warmth by night. Upon returning home, he feigned difficulty. I have just learned that the strategist is actually a woman. She has taken care of me closely. Gossip can be cruel, so I plan to take her as my secondary wife. On the 15th of next month, she'll marry me with you together. Prepare an extra wedding dress. I nodded. As I left, I said, there is an imperial edict in your study, General. You should take a look. He thought it was just another trivial request from the Empress to take good care of me. He dismissed it. Unaware, it was an imperial edict to break off our engagement. Ding! This novel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. Xie JunHao returned to the capital, with the army stationed 5 miles outside the city. I carried a food box to greet him. Inside were his favorite almond pastries. I made them myself. With the commander's token, I passed through unimpeded. Until I reached outside the command tent. JunHao, no, be gentle. Aren't you afraid of being overheard? You are my woman, as future husband and wife, it is only natural. I fear no one. Inside the tent, a woman's voice was sweet and gentle, a man's breath was heavy and low. It was Xie JunHao's voice. The air seemed to be filled with an indescribable scent. I stood outside the tent, feeling a wave of darkness before my eyes. Xin Yao? Just an ignorant woman, what else can she do besides making tea and embroidering? Not even 1,000th of you, is this the time to talk about her? My grip on the food box tightened. I stared intently at the entwined figures inside the tent, blood rushing to my head. My feet felt rooted to the ground, unable to move. I felt so nauseated I wanted to vomit. I had long heard that Xie JunHao had a strategist in the army. Disguised as a man, a strategist by day, a confidant by night, sharing warmth in the bed. I thought it was just a rumor. Now I heard it with my own ears, reality was more unbearable than the rumors. Xiaomei tugged at my sleeve with her head down. Miss. Taking a deep breath, I turned to a nearby tent to wait. After half an hour, the tent flap was suddenly lifted. Xie JunHao entered, somewhat disheveled, with fine sweat on his forehead. Seeing me, he frowned. What are you doing here? I lowered my eyes and handed over the food box. You are my fiancé, you returned to the capital, can't I come? I'm not skilled in cooking, I was in the kitchen before dawn. Making soup with my own hands, my fingers were cut with knife wounds. Now, he was not pleased. This is a military camp, a woman barging in, what decorum is that? Immediately, a man boldly entered the command tent. Dressed in a green robe with hair tied up, a faint blush on her slender neck. She thought I was a fool. With a smile, isn't this the general's fiancée, Miss Xin Yao? Miss Xin, JunHao has been in the army for a long time. He doesn't understand romance, don't blame him for not knowing how to speak. Xie JunHao impatiently introduced, Lin Molan is my strategist. He urged me. This is a military camp, there's nothing for you here, leave quickly. I put down the food box. Turned and left. Lin Molan caught up with me, stuffing the food box back into my hands. When no one was around, she didn't need to hold back, raising her eyebrows with a light smile. You are so dull and uninteresting, no wonder the general dislikes you. A woman should be like a man, capable of governing the country and defending it. Not confined to the inner chambers, considering her husband as the god. Knowing a man doesn't love you, yet shamelessly clinging on. As a fellow woman, I feel ashamed for you. I smiled. Yes, I am dull and uninteresting. Not the type of woman Xie JunHao loves. Now, he is not my ideal partner either. I can't find a reason to want a man like this. Stepping onto the carriage, Xiaomei, let's go. Miss, where to? To the palace. I was blind to the truth. The marriage between me and Xie JunHao was my own choice. That year, news came from the northern border that all the Xin family men had died in battle, leaving only me, a lone daughter, with the honor of the family. The emperor promised me a lifetime of wealth and prosperity, even allowing me to choose my own husband. He wished for my lifelong health and happiness. In a garden full of splendor, the empress let me choose a suitor who pleased me. From afar, I pointed at the man standing with a sword. Xie JunHao. I chose him because he was different. With my father and brothers dead, and in the midst of losing my closest kin, some noblewomen mocked me as a cursed star, bringing doom to my blood relatives. With no one left to stand up for me, I cried silently in the corner. Xie JunHao passed by and handed me a plain handkerchief. His voice was gentle. The Shin family is full of loyal bones and should not suffer such humiliation. As a descendant of a military family, you should not belittle yourself. A few days later, the emperor punished those who insulted me. The Empress, pitying my lack of family, took me in as her adopted sister. His small act of kindness stayed with me. But I didn't want him to be forced to marry me. So I went to the training grounds to ask him directly. He was practicing swordsmanship, his blade like snow, his stature tall and graceful. Blushing, I looked up and asked, "Can you marry me?" At that moment, Xie JunHao hesitated for a second. Then sheathed his sword, smiled faintly, and nodded, "All right." After the engagement was set, I was overjoyed. I was very willful. Now, I've changed my mind. I explained my reasons and asked the Empress to annul the engagement. It was I who wanted to marry him, and now it is I who does not. The emperor has many wives and concubines, and the Empress is already accustomed to it. I thought she would be angry or persuade me to endure. "Have you thought it through?" the Empress asked. I nodded emphatically. She only sighed softly, took my hand. "Silly girl, the Shin family guarded the borders for the kingdom, full of loyal martyrs. You naturally have the right to be willful. If I, as your sister, cannot protect your happiness, it would be my shame to the Shin family." I leaned on her knee and cried my heart out. The Empress stroked my hair, speaking gently. "That unruly one is not worthy of you. There are many good men in the court. I will choose a better one for you. This time, you listen to me." I shook my head. In this world, the hardest to find is not a splendid marriage, but mutual affection. If there isn't, then I won't marry. When I returned to the general's mansion, dusk had already fallen. I looked up. The gilded plaque of the general's mansion glimmered coldly in the setting sun. After I got engaged to Xie JunHao, he worried that I had no relatives to care for me at the Shin residence. So he let me stay at the general's mansion as a guest. To wait until I turned 20 to marry. He personally led me to the west wing, closest to his study, and said at that time, "From now on, consider this home. No one in the general's mansion will dare to bully you. But today, the one who hurt me the most and betrayed me the deepest is also him. Xiaomei." I called my personal maid. "Take inventory of the belongings and servants I brought." Back then, I was certain that once I moved into the general's mansion, it would be my home. I almost moved the entire Shin residence here. Now, taking inventory, there was quite a lot. The items from the Shin residence were easy to recognize. But Xie JunHao's belongings left Xiaomei unsure. "Miss, these few items." Xiaomei held a brocade box, hesitantly approaching. "These were gifts from the general. Should we take them?" My fingers slid over them one by one. The inlaid phoenix hairpin was placed on me by Xie JunHao himself during the Lantern Festival last year. The yellowed rabbit lantern, on a night when the city was full of lights. He found me in the crowd holding the lantern and said, "I remember, Yao Yao likes lanterns, and for the rest of my life, I'll bring you to see them." A poem, a handkerchief, each item I cherished as a treasure. When I received them from Xie JunHao, I was so happy I couldn't sleep all night. "Leave them." I turned to organize the desk. My sleeve brushed against the brush washer, water spreading across the paper. Reminiscent of when he gifted me this set of writing tools, and I spilled ink in my excitement. The commotion of sorting my belongings was loud. The steward hurried over, his gaze sweeping over the boxes, wanting to speak but hesitating. After a moment of indecision, he nervously asked, "Miss, where are you going?" The decree to annul the engagement hadn't arrived yet, so I couldn't tell the truth, only saying, "There's still a month until the wedding, and according to tradition, we shouldn't meet before then. I'll return to the Shin residence first." The steward repeatedly agreed. The next day, the courtyard was almost tidied up. The steward came again, followed by several craftsmen, all carrying iron pickaxes. He also brought Xie JunHao's original words. The general said, "The strategist has no relatives in the capital and will temporarily stay at the general's mansion. The strategist is frail, the west wing faces the sun, suitable for her recuperation," and asked Miss to clear out the west wing. Servants were already uprooting the crabapple trees that Xie JunHao and I planted together. The strategist likes silk trees, and the general said to plant them all over the west wing. This favoritism was blatant. The crabapple tree fell with a crash. The fallen flowers were buried in the soil. Xie JunHao might have forgotten, my favorite was the crabapple trees after the rain. And he had said, the west wing would be our wedding room. With a snap, the swing under the tree broke its rope. The steward stood aside, cautiously saying, "Miss likes swings, we can set up another in the main courtyard." "No need." I bent down to pick up a branch of crabapple. I didn't care anymore. The owner of the general's mansion is Xie JunHao, whatever he wants, he decides. What he said about the rest of our lives was only 3 years. 10 days later, I received the imperial decree annulling my engagement. Yellow silk and vermilion ink, the red seal and stamp made it clear that my engagement with him was truly dissolved. The west wing was already tidied up. It was empty, just like when I first moved in. I casually tossed the decree onto the desk and left the estate with Xiaomei and 36 boxes of dowry. Spring was in full bloom. At this moment, Xie JunHao returned. To be precise, Xie JunHao and his entourage returned. The strategist sat beside Xie JunHao, dressed in white robes that outshone the snow, exuding an ethereal beauty. I stood quietly, watching him carefully help Lin Molan dismount from the horse. "Ah!" A soft voice called out, and she fell into Xie JunHao's arms. In front of the estate gate, people came and went, many watching and whispering to each other. The two were completely unbothered. He lied, his performance impeccable, acting as if he was reluctantly forced into a difficult situation. I just learned that the strategist is actually a woman. During this time, she has taken great care of me closely. Gossip is fearsome, so I plan to marry her as a secondary wife. On the 15th of next month, she will marry me with you together. Prepare an additional wedding dress for her. I remained silent, calm and obedient. Xie JunHao, in front of me, took her hand and continued to instruct. She doesn't like extravagant or vulgar things, the jewelry and clothes should be elegant. She has been injured, is weak and frail, and cannot overexert herself. For the wedding arrangements, you handle them yourself. The two exchanged smiles. Xie JunHao's expression was full of joy. I nodded and suddenly smiled. I wish the general and his lady a long and happy life together. Upon hearing this, Xie JunHao's face suddenly darkened, and he reprimanded. "What do you mean by your sarcastic tone? If it weren't for Molan's intelligence, I wouldn't have conquered El Country. While you were enjoying life in the capital, I was uncertain of life or death in the northern desert. And it was Molan who disregarded propriety to save my life." The more he spoke, the more agitated he became, every word defending Lin Molan. "She has already devoted herself to me, as a man, shouldn't I give her a status?" His voice grew colder. "Now letting her stand equal to you, I've already wronged her. You are a noble lady, how can you not have the heart to accommodate this?" I took a deep breath. My nails dug deep into my palm, the sharp pain bringing a strange clarity. Righteous and detailed, for a moment, I was speechless. Thousands of words choked my throat painfully. In the end, only one word came out, "Fine." Xie JunHao nodded with satisfaction. He continued to speak at length about the secondary wife's etiquette, the preparation of the dowry, daily life, and even her preference for embroidery patterns on her sleeves, all as if reciting from memory. I wasn't listening. I simply lowered my gaze and nodded. He explained meticulously, while Lin Molan's face was already flushed, smiling shyly. After speaking, Xie JunHao said, "You should stay temporarily at the Shin estate during these days. And don't be lazy, follow closely with the general estate's matters." I still nodded. Before leaving, I turned and said, "There's an imperial decree in your study. General, you can go see it yourself." He seemed to hear, yet seemed not to hear. He was holding Lin Molan's hand, stepping over the threshold. Carefully, with attentive care. Behind me were a group of servants, boxes lined like a dragon. If he bothered to look closely, he would realize I was moving out, not staying temporarily. The day after Xie JunHao returned to the estate, he sent the steward to inquire about Lin Mulin's wedding dress preparation. The steward returned, Mistress is busy and does not see guests. 2 days later, he sent someone again to inquire. Mistress is busy and does not see guests. On the 5th day, the answer remained the same. Xie JunHao realized that Xin Yao was sulking with him. The steward quietly suggested that perhaps Xie JunHao should coax her a bit, and Xin Yao would no longer be angry. In the backyard training ground, Xie JunHao drew his bowstring, casually. Women in the inner chambers, aren't they just using these little tricks? Let her be. He turned to embrace the white-robed woman beside him. Mulin wants to see the newly arrived brocade? Come, let me take you. Xie JunHao thought Xin Yao was being pretentious and decided to ignore her for a while. Afterwards, the two of them went out to enjoy themselves. Xie JunHao took Lin Mulin to various banquets. Listening to opera at the restaurant, boating on Lotus Lake, admiring the moon and flowers. All of the capital knew that General Xie was going to marry a secondary wife. Xie JunHao had a group of military friends who, after drinking, joked without restraint. General, you really have a way with things, marrying a secondary wife on the same day. Can you handle the wedding night? Is it together, or one in the first half of the night and the other in the second half? Everyone was extremely envious, flattering him endlessly. Someone quietly asked, aren't you afraid Mistress will be angry? Angry? Xie JunHao tapped his fingers on the table, raising his head to drink the fine wine in his cup. The alcohol went to his head, and he recalled Xin Yao's eager look waiting for him to return home. Her anticipation when she happily gave him a handkerchief, her eyes full of him. He laughed. Xin Yao's entire family is gone, leaving only distant relatives. She's a lone girl, besides me, who else would want her? How dare she be angry? Aren't you afraid the Empress will blame you? The Empress took her as a sworn sister just to silence the censors and not dishearten the military officials. Xie JunHao drank another sip of wine. Thinking. Indeed, Xin Yao, a lone girl, isolated and helpless, could only rely on him to survive. Moreover, he was a minister of the military. Which man doesn't have multiple wives and concubines? She must learn to get used to it. Because she only had him. At most, after the wedding, he would visit her room a few more nights and give her a child. Xin Yao was the most soft-hearted and easiest to coax. Everyone laughed, and Xie JunHao drank another cup, full of bravado. If she doesn't like it, hold it in for me. General Xie is truly a great man. The banquet was filled with cheers. That day, Xie JunHao was hungover, waking up in the morning with a splitting headache. Vaguely remembering he had ignored Xin Yao for 10 days. It was about time. After washing up, he called the steward, come with me to the Xin estate. I returned to the Xin estate, cleaning and moving, busy beyond measure. The courtyard corners were filled with crabapple trees. Xie JunHao pulled his out. I planted mine. No one else interfered. After 10 days, the Xin residence's door was knocked, and it was Xie JunHao. The servants, following my orders, dared not let him in and stopped him at the door. I went out to deal with him. Xie JunHao's face was dark, and he questioned angrily. It's been 10 days, you should have calmed down by now. Must I always accommodate you, coax you, for you to be happy? Why haven't Mulin's wedding dress and dowry been prepared? I patted the dirt off my skirt and retorted. Why should I prepare these things if General Xie is getting married? I stood tall. Neither humble nor arrogant. This was my first time in 3 years to defy and confront him. No longer soft-hearted. Xin Yao! Xie JunHao, embarrassed and angry, grabbed my wrist. Stop it, you're making a scene. Come back with me. Don't be ungrateful. His expression was arrogant, his words harsh. Before he could finish, a cold light flashed, and a blade grazed Xie JunHao's hand. His grip loosened. The crimson flying fish robe fell, and someone beside me said in a low voice, Sorry, it's a habit to draw my blade when seeing injustice. Xie JunHao's face changed drastically, sweating with fear. If he had let go a bit slower, his right hand might have been severed. It was the commander of the Imperial Guards, Pei Yunfan. I stood there stunned, my fingers unconsciously clutching my sleeves, somewhat afraid. The name Pei Yunfan was enough to strike fear into hearts. It was said the souls under his blade could fill half a moat. There was still fresh blood on his embroidered spring blade. No one knew which residence he had just raided, what case he had handled, or whom he had killed. Pei Yunfan waved his hand. Behind him, the Imperial Guards lined up on both sides of the Shin residence. By order of the Empress, the Eastern Bureau is here to protect Miss Shin. He glanced at Xie JunHao with a half-smile. Isn't that a coincidence? Xie JunHao's gaze swept between me and Pei Yunfan, suddenly sneering. I haven't been here for 10 days, and you don't seem lonely at all. His words grew increasingly vile. He's a eunuch, what can he do? I widened my eyes, furious, raising my voice. Xie JunHao. It's one thing to insult me, but Pei Yunfan was just following orders. He shouldn't be humiliated like this. Xie JunHao arrogantly raised his chin, leaving harsh words. Xinyao, you're still part of the Xie family, take a couple of days to calm down. My patience is limited, don't keep me waiting. With that, he left in a huff. After he left, I quickly composed myself and apologized to Pei Yunfan, feeling uneasy. In the capital, it was said he was a fierce and ruthless person, his words as sharp as his blade. No matter, if a dog bites me, should I bite back? He sneered. I'll settle this with him sooner or later. Before leaving, he handed me a white jade waist token. If you encounter trouble, you can come to the Eastern Bureau to find me. He added, don't get into trouble and make me fail the task the Empress entrusted to me. I was stunned for a moment. Turning around, he was already gone. After he left, eunuch Li from the Empress's side emerged from behind the wall corner. Miss Shin, what do you think of Lord Pei? He smiled warmly. I couldn't help but laugh. It was the Empress's deliberate arrangement. She was keen on introducing me to a good man, fearing I'd refuse. So she orchestrated this indirect meeting. I rubbed the waist token's engraving as if the Emperor himself were present. Who in the capital didn't know that the commander of the Imperial Guards was a close relative of the Empress? A confidant of the Emperor? He was young and promising, with good character and family background. The only flaw was his family's crime in his youth, leading him to spend a year in the palace. Young men entering the palace were subjected to castration. Xie JunHao was relentless, coming daily, but I refused to see him. Fortunately, the Imperial Guards were watching, preventing Xie JunHao from acting out. One day, I entered the palace to meet the Empress. In the corridor, I encountered Pei Yunfan. I was about to step aside, but he suddenly grabbed me, blocking my path. I heard that scoundrel Xie JunHao is loitering outside your residence every day. His voice was low, with a hint of gritted teeth, shameless. He'll continue to pester you daily. He asked me, what will you do? I didn't know, so I shook my head. He suddenly let go, stepping back half a step. His eyes glowed faintly. I can help you, eliminate the trouble forever. My heart skipped a beat. Don't kill anyone. Marry me. We spoke simultaneously. Both were stunned. After a while, Pei Yunfan laughed heartily. My heart was pounding, feeling both awkward and at a loss. He stopped laughing and spoke plainly. Because of his status as commander and his past as a eunuch, no one dared to marry him. If I agreed to this marriage, it would not only solve my troubles with Xie JunHao but also help him conceal the truth. If you find a good match later, you can leave any time. My parents passed away early, there are no elders in the residence to serve. If you marry me, you'll have the final say in all matters. He laid out the terms clearly, like negotiating a deal. Yet his hands, accustomed to holding a blade, unconsciously fondled the hilt. His tone seemed oddly urgent. As if afraid I wouldn't agree. Or afraid of scaring me. One tempting condition after another was thrown out, and I was indeed tempted. Marrying him didn't seem so bad. He wouldn't have his own children, nor would he have multiple wives and concubines. Marrying him would mean having a companion for life, living a simple, peaceful life, which was good too. Marry me, you won't regret it. Okay. I heard myself say. Pei Yunfan suddenly looked up, a flash of incredulous light in his eyes. His throat moved, quickly saying, In 7 days, I'll come to propose. On the way to the Empress palace, Xiaomei stomped her foot anxiously. Miss, you've only met him twice, how could you agree? Spring breezes swept through the hall, blowing down a tree of crabapple blossoms. Actually, it wasn't just twice. That year, my father and brother died in battle because someone colluded with the enemy. That person had fled to the south. Filled with hatred, I pursued him to the south, intent on avenging my family. Unfortunately, my skills were lacking. But I didn't know Pei Yunfan had also pursued him. That day, standing in a pool of blood, he said to me, Miss Xin, I avenged your father for you. The enemy died horribly. He didn't let the criminal return to the capital alive, and he was punished for it. To this day, I don't understand why, even though it was my enemy, he seemed angrier than I was. The Empress was quite surprised when she heard my decision. Then she patted my hand and said confidently, Good. You won't regret it. Our marriage was finally settled. I originally wanted to keep everything simple, not even in a hurry to choose a wedding date. But after leaving the Empress's residence, Pei Yunfan eagerly dragged me to the astronomical bureau. He stared at the chief astrologer flipping through the almanac. The chief astrologer looked at me, then at the fierce-looking Pei Yunfan, too shocked to speak. He checked the names on the imperial decree granting the marriage over and over again. Pei Yunfan spoke. The sooner, the better. The soonest good day was the 15th of next month. That was the original wedding date for me and Xie JunHao. No way. Pei Yunfan frowned, change it to the 13th of next month. That day. He was resolute. I was a bit puzzled and asked the chief astrologer, is the 13th an auspicious day? The old chief astrologer wiped the sweat from his forehead. Yes, it's an auspicious day. The 13th is when the red phoenix star moves, suitable for marriage. Only then did Pei Yunfan nod in satisfaction. And as he turned around, the corners of his mouth lifted slightly. I had meticulously prepared for 3 whole years for my wedding with Xie JunHao. But now that I was to marry Pei Yunfan, I didn't know where to start. He probably wouldn't like me using what I had prepared before. I burned the wedding dress meant for Xie JunHao. The dragon and phoenix candles I had carefully chosen for him were also discarded. From now on, a clean break. Pei Yunfan was always very busy. Recently, there was a murder case in H County, and he left the city early with his men. He only left trusted aides to protect me. I wanted to discuss wedding matters with him, but he was nowhere to be seen. In the afternoon, I sat behind my desk, lost in thought. Suddenly, the window lattice moved slightly, and a well-defined hand reached out to me. A fish-patterned jade pendant was pushed over. What are you thinking about? I looked up and met Pei Yunfan's smiling eyes. He leaned against the desk, his dark official robe still dusty. With dappled shadows from the trees behind him, and the water was calm and deep. I blinked. For the first time, I realized that Pei Yunfan was also quite a handsome gentleman. Not the delicate beauty of a eunuch, but a handsome man with a hint of sharpness. This is... I picked up the jade pendant, examining it repeatedly. It was a rare treasure. A gift from the Empress, he explained, it's a pair. Only then did I notice that he also had a similar jade pendant hanging from his waist. When put together, they formed a perfect full moon. Perhaps the Empress wanted us to be in harmony. Without doubting him, I carefully tied it to my waist. I didn't notice Pei Yunfan's lips curling slightly. I looked up, not knowing what to say. Suddenly, I remembered something. A few days ago, his steward came over mysteriously, bringing several boxes. When I opened them, I was quite shocked. Inside were deeds, land deeds, silver notes, and account books. The steward left without saying a word. Pei Yunfan O edition. I am busy with government affairs and often not in the capital. The family is large and no one to manage it, so I'll trouble you in the future. His tone was casual and calm, as if discussing the weather, not his family business. I wanted to ask more, but he quickly changed the topic. Don't worry about the wedding arrangements, the steward will take care of everything. He paused, looked back at me. He was so close. A faint scent of soap drifted over. For no reason, my heart pounded like a drum, and my ears burned. Pei Yunfan chuckled softly. His voice was very light. Just wait for me to come and marry you. The steward of the Xie family still lingered outside my residence every day, never gaining entry. There were still half a month until the wedding. The betrothal gifts from Pei Yunfan, a full 18 loads, arrived on the same day as the dowry the Empress added for me, filling the long street. I stood under the eaves, seeing the Xie family steward standing outside the crowd from afar. He nodded and finally left. After that day, no one from the Xie family appeared outside my residence again. However, a few days later, Xiaomei brought a letter from Xie JunHao, hesitantly asking, "Miss, do you want to read it?" Looking at the few powerful characters, I was momentarily stunned. Suddenly, I realized I hadn't seen Xie JunHao for more than half a month. When he used to go on expeditions, even a short half-month absence would make my soul yearn. Tossing and turning, just waiting for a letter, a word from him. A few words would make me happy all day, then obediently wait for him to return home. Now, thinking back, my heart was calm and unruffled. Looking out the window, I suddenly understood a truth. No one is unforgettable. Nothing is insurmountable. Xie JunHao. He's just like that. Having figured it out, I felt good and slowly unfolded the letter. The handwriting was hasty, only a few words. "It's good that you've figured it out. Be good and wait for me to marry you. Don't throw childish tantrums. Don't cause any more trouble, making people laugh." Absurd. I stared at the familiar handwriting for a long time, suddenly realizing Xie JunHao still didn't know I was marrying Pei Yunfan. He probably thought the dowry the Empress prepared for me was to marry him. I left him the imperial decree, and he hadn't even looked at it. Ridiculous. The letter fell into the brazier. The flames licked the paper, turning it to ashes in an instant. As if the letter had never existed. Xie JunHao felt that he was just stubborn, but his heart was still soft. He was worried about Xinyao, so he sent the steward to the Shin residence every day to keep an eye on things. That day, the steward saw with his own eyes the Empress sending a dowry, and Xinyao happily accepted it. Then he returned to the Xie residence and reported everything in detail. Miss Shin may not be willing to see this old servant, but she is indeed preparing for the wedding with peace of mind. The specifications are even higher than a princess's wedding, which shows that the Empress is very satisfied with this marriage. With that, he felt relieved. He scoffed lightly. Xinyao dreams of marrying him, how could she bear to leave him? She's just throwing a tantrum with him. Now, she must be secretly delighted, finally able to marry him. Go to the palace and invite a teaching nanny. Xie JunHao suddenly spoke. He pondered. After Xinyao enters the household, let her learn the ways of being a wife properly. The steward bowed and agreed, about to leave, when Lin Molan came gracefully, looking gloomy and unhappy. "JunHao." She bit her lip, her eyes slightly red. "I come from humble origins and only know how to strategize in battles. I can't even prepare a decent dowry. Will I embarrass you?" Xie JunHao's heart softened. He reached out and pulled her into his arms. He promised her on the spot that after Xinyao entered the household, he would take a few items from her dowry and give them to Lin Molan. After all, there were plenty, and sharing some wouldn't hurt. Lin Molan was happy and finally smiled. At this moment, the steward returned, holding a gilded invitation. "General, Lord Pei is getting married on the 13th of next month and has sent an invitation." Xie JunHao didn't even bother to lift his eyelids. He threw the invitation aside. Sneering, "A eunuch, learning to marry like others, what a disgrace. Not going. Pei Yunfan sent me many things, and I realized I hadn't returned a single gift. That's not right." So I took Xiaomei to the jewelry pavilion. The shopkeeper was sharp-eyed and immediately recognized the fish-patterned jade pendant at my waist. "Ah, it's the future wife of Commander Pei." I was puzzled. "How do you recognize me?" He pointed to my jade pendant, saying it was a treasure that came from his shop. Lord Pei asked me to search for it for a long time, and finally bought it at a high price from a Western merchant. He smiled suggestively. Lord Pei said that for the girl he loves, naturally, he wants the best. My heart trembled. The fingers clenched in my sleeve couldn't help but tighten. For no reason, my ears burned. Lost in thought, Xie JunHao entered with Lin Molan. After more than half a month of not seeing her, Lynn Mullins seemed like a different person. Today, she dressed particularly brightly, a scarlet skirt accentuating her snow-white skin. Golden hairpins, jade bracelets, and brocade. If I remember correctly, when she first entered the residence, she said that in life, one should only seek a simple drink, a simple meal, and a humble abode. Not seeking wealth and glory, but only wishing to stay with Xie JunHao for life. What a person indifferent as a chrysanthemum. I looked away, pretending not to see the two of them. Xie JunHao seemed pleased to see me and took a step towards me. "Xinyao, since you're out buying dowry, don't be stingy with silver. Buy more, and put it on the general's residence account, consider it my addition to you." Before he finished speaking, Lynn Mullins suddenly cried out and clutched her stomach, shouting in pain. Xie JunHao immediately panicked and supported her. I glanced over, realizing she was pregnant. No wonder they were rushing to marry. Xie JunHao turned to instruct me. "Xinyao, why are you still standing there? Quickly go get a doctor." Lynn Mullins weakly said, "JunHao, I'm fine, it's just the child being restless, kicking me." I almost laughed out loud. Not even showing a belly, how could it be restless? Lynn Mullins always talked about who says women are inferior to men, looking down on little housewives. Yet, to snatch a man, she learned the tricks of inner household disputes without a teacher. "No, you should still get some fetal protection medicine, I'm not at ease." He thought for a moment, then said to me, "You should learn too, so when you have your own child, you'll know how to take care of it. Why aren't you going yet?" I was almost amused by his words. Ignoring him, I turned and left. Xie JunHao shouted sternly, "Xinyao, how dare you ignore me? Where have you read the 4 books and 5 classics? The husband is the wife's guide, don't you know?" He was loud, and everyone present heard clearly. They all bowed their heads, not daring to make a sound. I stopped and turned back to ask, "Didn't you read the imperial edict in the study? The invitation from the Pei residence should have been sent to your residence too." Xie JunHao was stunned, not yet reacting, when Lynn Mullins moaned in pain again. "JunHao, will our child be all right?" Xie JunHao's thoughts were completely confused. He couldn't bother to reprimand me. Bent down to lift Lynn Mullins horizontally, and hurriedly walked out. Before leaving, he didn't forget to glare at me. "I'll settle accounts with you later." The shopkeeper watched in confusion. Xiaomei pursed her lips, laughing so hard she bent over. "He's gone mad." On the day of the grand wedding, I woke up before dawn. Outside the window, I could already hear the faint sounds of firecrackers and festive music. The Xin residence hadn't been this lively in a long time. The matchmaker came in with 4 maids to dress me up. They painted my eyebrows, applied powder, and tinted my lips. In the bronze mirror, the bride's features were as delicate as a painting, charming and beautiful. I no longer had any family. It was the Empress who combed my hair, and then personally placed the red veil over my head. Outside, someone sang loudly, "The groom is here to fetch the bride." The Empress held my hand and carefully led me to the door. Under the red veil, I could only see the tips of my embroidered shoes. A hand with distinct knuckles suddenly appeared in my line of sight. With a thick callus at the base of the thumb, left from years of holding a sword. I still couldn't quite believe it. In a daze, it felt like a dream. In the last moment of the dream, I was still longing day and night to become Xie JunHao's wife. Upon waking from the dream, I was marrying another man. "Pei Yunfan?" I asked softly. "Yes, it's me." The voice came, deep and gentle. Pei Yunfan's hand was large and warm. He held my hand tightly, interlocking our fingers as if I were a treasure. I was a bit nervous, and my hand couldn't help but sweat. After taking a few steps, I suddenly realized that not only was my palm sweating, but his was too. So he was nervous as well. From the Xin residence to the Pei residence, it was only about 2 miles. The bridal sedan swayed, feeling both long and short. When no one was watching, I quietly lifted a corner of the veil. At that moment, the curtain of the sedan was also lifted slightly. I held my breath. Pei Yunfan was on horseback, leaning over, his handsome face close at hand. He smiled briefly. Quickly, he slipped a wedding cake into my lap. It was still warm. "Don't go hungry." The wedding cake was cloyingly sweet. In the midst of his busy day, he still thought of how I hadn't eaten all day. My eyes felt a bit sore. I realized he was always like this, never saying he liked me, never making empty promises, but silently keeping everything in his heart. Even such subtle gestures were easily overlooked by me. March 15th was Xie JunHao's wedding day. That day, the sound of gongs and drums was deafening, and the general's residence was decorated with lanterns and streamers. Even the most remote woodshed was hung with red lanterns. Xie JunHao, dressed in a bright red robe, asked, "Go check, is the lady ready?" There was only one lady in the residence, Lin Mullen. The servants thought he was referring to her. They went and returned, answering, "The lady is ready." Xie JunHao frowned. From the general's residence to the Xin residence, a round trip would take at least half an hour. This servant returned too quickly. "Did you go to the Xin residence? Did you see Xin Yao?" He felt inexplicably restless. The servant, full of confusion, thought he was asking if Xin Yao would come to the banquet, and immediately rode to the Xin residence. Upon returning, seeing Xie JunHao's displeased expression, the servant cautiously replied, "Miss Xin is at the residence, she'll come over for the banquet soon." Xie JunHao nodded in satisfaction. It was almost time for the auspicious hour. The matchmaker entered with a beaming smile. "General, the auspicious hour has arrived, it's time for the ceremony." Xie JunHao looked fierce. Frustrated with the servants' incompetence, they hadn't even clarified the wedding process. "What ceremony? I haven't gone to fetch the bride. Someone, prepare the horse." The matchmaker was stunned, puzzled. Isn't the bride already residing in the residence? "Well, for the fetching, the general can just take the lady for a walk around the residence, no need to go out." "Hey! No! General, where are you going?" Xie JunHao's heart trembled. A bad premonition swept over him. He said, "Xin Yao, I'm going to the Xin residence to fetch the bride. Today I want to marry 2 wives." The matchmaker's face changed dramatically, almost dropping her handkerchief. In 60 years of life, she had never encountered such an absurd thing. Has the general lost his mind? Miss Xin married Commander Pei a few days ago. Today is her return visit day. I heard Lord Pei also invited the general. Didn't the general know? Impossible. His eyes instantly filled with a stormy sea. By this time, guests had already begun to arrive at the residence. Hearing his loud shout, they all looked over. At the door, guests coming to witness the ceremony were streaming in continuously. "Hey! General Xia, where are you going?" Under the gaze of all, Xie JunHao tore off the wedding flower from his chest, rushed out the door, grabbed a white horse, and mounted it. Like a gust of wind, leaving everyone bewildered. "JunHao!" Lin Mullen lifted her skirt, stumbling and chasing after him. Her hairpins jingled, falling at the doorstep, crying with tears like a pear blossom in the rain. "JunHao, come back, where are you going? Don't leave me!" Xie JunHao turned a deaf ear, not looking back, feeling for the first time what it meant to be burning with anxiety. Under the crabapple tree, a set of chess pieces was laid out on the stone table. I sat on one side, and Pei Yunfan sat on the other. He suddenly reached out and plucked a crabapple blossom from my hair. "Thank you." The spring breeze blew through. The courtyard was filled with fallen petals. A commotion came from the entrance. Sensing something, I looked eastward. Our eyes met. Xie JunHao stood in the corridor in a bright red wedding robe, the hem covered in dust, and his golden crown askew. He was still holding a horsewhip. This groom was in a sorry state. I glanced at Pei Yunfan, who had a smile on his lips, and understood immediately. The guards were clearly stationed at the gate but allowed him to break in. It was intentional. Pei Yunfan stood up and discreetly shielded me behind him. I patted his shoulder and stepped forward. I must handle my own affairs, I cannot always hide behind others. I am already married. Xie JunHao is also getting married today. Everyone has found their place, he sought what he wanted, so why the expression? Xie JunHao's Adam's apple moved, his voice hoarse. "Yao Yao. Stop." I straightened my dress and corrected him sternly. The general should call me Mrs. Pei. Beside me, Pei Yunfan nodded repeatedly. He smiled like a child who had just received candy. Pei Yunfan's hands suddenly wrapped around my waist. And he whispered in my ear while provocatively looking at Xie JunHao. General Xie, we, as a couple, have to go to the palace to express our gratitude later. So we won't be able to attend your wedding banquet today. Xie JunHao shook his head, something in his eyes shattered. He staggered. Undeniably. Are you joking with me? An unprecedented humility and hope. He lowered himself completely, trying to appease me. I know you're angry with me. Look, I've come to find you. I know you don't like Lin Mullen, so I won't marry her. I'll just make her a concubine, is that okay? Come back with me. I took a step back. General Xie. Leaning into Pei Yunfan's embrace. I have already married Pei Yunfan. I am now a madam of the Pei family. Xie JunHao's eyes turned red. You are my fiancé. The imperial decree granted our marriage, how can you break off the engagement and marry someone else? He went mad, trying to grab me. I didn't move a step. Pei Yunfan had already wrapped his arm around my waist, retreating a distance so that Xie couldn't even touch the hem of my clothes. I reminded him again. The imperial decree I left in your study, didn't you read it? Xie JunHao was bewildered. I found it both absurd and amusing. He thought that decree was just another lengthy instruction from the Emperor and Empress on how to treat me well. He had long been annoyed with me, unwilling to look at it, just like previous decrees. He had already tossed it in a corner, letting it gather dust. The Xie family's steward chased after him, panting, General, the imperial decree. Trembling, he presented the bright yellow silk scroll. The Emperor ordered the annulment of your engagement with Miss Shin. Xie JunHao made a colossal fool of himself. The entire court knew that our engagement had been annulled. Knew that Pei Yunfan married me, only he didn't know. If he had taken my words to heart, even glanced at it, he wouldn't have looked so foolish today. Guests at the Xie residence, unaware of the situation, thought there was an enemy attack, and many chased after him. They all witnessed his foolishness. Pei Yunfan flexed his fingers, making a cracking sound. According to our country's laws, trespassing into a private residence without permission is considered theft. General Xie, what is the punishment for breaking the law knowingly? He spoke slowly and deliberately, a cold smile on his lips. Do you really think my guards rely on kindness? The main door slammed shut. A group of guards appeared out of nowhere, rubbing their fists, gradually closing in. I suddenly realized. Pei Yunfan had been holding back a bellyful of mischief, waiting to close the door and beat the dog. A large hand covered my eyes. Madam, today your husband will help you vent your anger. Xie JunHao became the talk of the town and the capital. On his wedding day, the groom abandoned the bride and ran to snatch Mrs. Pei, only to be beaten by the guards and thrown onto the street. He was even turned into a story, recited in tea houses. Xie JunHao lay in bed for half a month. After recovering, he was unwilling to give up and filed a complaint. First, he accused Pei Yunfan of seducing me first. Second, he accused me of deliberately concealing the annulment news, breaking the engagement and marrying someone else. The emperor ignored his memorial. In the end, it escalated to the imperial study. In front of several civil and military officials, he went mad, pointing at Pei Yunfan's nose and cursing. Pei Yunfan is a eunuch. He's impotent. They clearly teamed up to deceive me. I do not acknowledge their marriage. He spoke righteously, asking the emperor to annul our marriage. The whole was in an uproar. Who was Pei Yunfan, the ruthless commander of the guards, the fiery Yama? The eunuch rumor was something people only dared to whisper privately. No one dared to speak it openly. Pei Yunfan's face darkened. In the imperial study, he dared to draw his sword to attack. Xie JunHao, after all, was a military general. The two fought fiercely in the imperial study. In the end, the imperial guards restrained them. The emperor was furious, giving each of them 20 lashes and suspending them from their positions for reflection. Back at the Pei residence, Pei Yunfan lay on the couch, still able to laugh. Worth it! That guy broke a leg! I angrily slapped his wound. You're still laughing? The emperor suspended your position. Hiss. He exaggeratedly cried out in pain. I had already sent someone to investigate thoroughly. Those lashes were just for show, not heavy-handed. He said it was just right, so he could take me on a trip, treat it as a holiday. Aren't you bedridden? He couldn't laugh anymore. Slapped his own face. I quietly sat to the side, recalling what his colleagues had conveyed about the imperial study incident. I couldn't figure it out. Pei Yunfan was always steady. He was a guard, had offended many people, and had heard enough curses to make his ears callous. Even if Xie JunHao's words were unpleasant. Did he need to be so angry, drawing his sword before the emperor? Was he not afraid to die? I asked, do you have a grudge against him? You can insult me, but not you. Pei Yunfan blurted out, then abruptly stopped. In the flickering candlelight, I saw his ears turn red. I was also a bit stunned. After a long silence, he changed his words, quickly trying to smooth things over. I didn't mean anything else. You now bear the title of Mrs. Pei. You can stay at the Pei residence with peace of mind. If you meet someone you truly love, you can leave at any time. What I said back then will always hold true. I nodded, not daring to look into his eyes. That night, we continued to sleep in separate beds, never crossing the line. It had been this way since we got married. He said he wouldn't touch me, and he couldn't. A sleepless night. At dawn, I went to the palace. My doubts were all answered by the Empress. As I left the palace, the river was chilly, and it was already dusk. That year, when I lost my father, some mocked me as a jinx, claiming I brought misfortune to my family. It was Pei Yunfan who secretly reported them, ensuring those people were punished. No one dared to speak ill again. Back then, Xie JunHao merely said a few good words to ease my embarrassment. But the one who truly helped me was Pei Yunfan. I hated being a fish mixed with pearls. But why was he so kind to me? The Empress spoke of things I never knew. The Pei family and my family were originally close friends. When the Pei family was disgraced, Pei Yunfan and I were already betrothed. You were too young to remember. The Pei family didn't want to implicate you, so they withdrew the engagement. Later, when the Pei family was exonerated, their influence had waned. And they were no longer a match for the Shen family, so the engagement was left unresolved. Later, I chose Xie JunHao to marry, which ended his hopes. He's just a bit stubborn. When he heard you wanted to break off the engagement, he rode 3 horses to exhaustion to come back. By the time I returned to the manor, it was past dinner. I pushed open the bedroom door. The servants greeted me, placed the herbal ointment down, and left. Pei Yunfan was lying on the bed. Seeing me approach with the ointment, he became somewhat flustered. The commanding officer, so imposing outside, was cautious and careful in front of me. Such affection should not be taken for granted. As I lifted the quilt, he grabbed my wrist. Let the servants handle this. My fingers touched the ointment. I lowered my head, my face flushed. When I was little, didn't you see mine? Can't I look back now? Yunfan. Pei Yunfan's eyes widened suddenly, almost choking on his own saliva. His waist didn't hurt, nor did his backside. He jumped up from the bed, pulling me into his arms. The weather was warm, and he wasn't wearing any clothes. His skin was hot, making my head feel like it was steaming. His breath was close, Lily. Tears shimmered in his eyes, feelings he had hidden for years. Lily was my childhood name, known to no one after my father and brother passed. My nose tingled with emotion. Though Pei Yunfan held me tightly, he didn't go further. I once entered the inner court. I feared you would despise me. I stood on tiptoe and kissed him. Although we slept in separate beds, we were in the same room. Sometimes, I woke up earlier than him. Before marriage, the palace matrons had taught me. In the morning, who was fooled by his unusual state? I suspected Pei Yunfan intentionally caused a scene in the imperial study, leading to his suspension and self-reflection. During those days, I was miserable. It was my turn to be bedridden. Rumors spread throughout the manor about Lord Pei's extraordinary vigor, carrying water 5 times in one night, leaving me too embarrassed to face anyone. It wasn't until he was reinstated that I could finally breathe a sigh of relief. In just 2 months, I was pregnant. Now the entire capital knew that not only was Lord Pei not a eunuch, but he was also quite formidable. Xie JunHao came to the Pei Manor daily, wanting to see me. I didn't want to see him. So he stood outside the wall, staring at the crabapple tree, sometimes for an entire day, looking lost. Passers-by pointed and whispered. One day, Pei Yunfan personally escorted the imperial physician out and caught sight of Xie JunHao. In a particularly good mood, he raised his voice deliberately. Someone accompany the imperial physician to the palace to fetch the pregnancy medicine. Buy more firewood, keep the kitchen's hot water ready for 12 hours. The nearby imperial physician blushed deeply. Supporting my waist, I went out to find Pei Yunfan. Xie JunHao looked over, overjoyed, Yao Yao. I didn't even glance at him, only reaching out to Pei Yunfan. Pei Yunfan immediately enveloped me in his arms, handling me with care. Before entering the door, I finally turned to look back. Xie JunHao stood far away. The wind blew, reddening the corners of his eyes. His gaze was filled with shattered despair. And regret. Now I have a husband who loves me, and a child in the future. Xie JunHao's joys and sorrows are no longer my concern. Ever since Xie JunHao left Lin Molan on their wedding day, the two have never completed their marriage. Lin Molan remained awkwardly by Xie JunHao's side, neither as a wife nor as a concubine. The position of the general's wife seemed out of reach. Every day, she would put on a dramatic display of crying, making a scene, and threatening to hang herself. Heavily pregnant, she cut her long hair in front of the temple's main hall, which was bustling with worshippers. Grabbing a pair of scissors from the offering table, she pressed them to her abdomen and cried out, "I'm sorry, my child." A nameless, illegitimate child shouldn't be born. The temple was crowded with people coming and going. Without Xie JunHao needing to intervene, a concerned bystander snatched the scissors away. Naturally, she didn't succeed in harming herself. Later, she asked her maid to cook abortion soup. But the maid didn't dare and immediately reported it to Xie JunHao. That attempt also failed. Xie JunHao remained cold-hearted. My wife is only Xin Yao. These words eventually reached my ears, making me so disgusted that I couldn't eat for a day. No matter how much Lin Molan cried or made a scene, Xie JunHao refused to marry her. Didn't you say that as long as you could stay by my side, you wouldn't care about status? It seems he still didn't understand Lin Molan. On the day of the Mid-Autumn Festival, someone struck the drum of grievances. The families of fallen soldiers at the border wrote a bloodletter accusing Xie JunHao of indulging in beauty at the border and losing thousands of elite soldiers on the battlefield, while chasing after a beautiful strategist who left in a huff. In ancient times, King Zhou lit beacons to amuse his concubine, and now General Xie chased love across 1,000 miles, burying thousands of soldiers for their passionate romance. It was utterly absurd and foolish. The matter caused a huge uproar. A tribunal was convened, and the evidence was conclusive. Xie JunHao was demoted to a city gate guard, and his family assets were confiscated to compensate the families of the deceased soldiers. Meanwhile, the strategist Lin Molan became a scapegoat overnight. Her reputation tarnished to the point of being compared to a camp prostitute. At this point, she stopped crying and making a fuss, no longer clamoring to marry Xie JunHao. She ran away with her pregnancy. Before leaving, she took the remaining valuables from the Xie family and left a farewell letter, saying that without a man, she could still live a wonderful life with her child. The Xie family was thunderstruck and immediately reported her to the authorities. She couldn't run far with her pregnant belly and was caught within a few days. I didn't steal. That was the child support money. My compensation for lost youth. It's what I deserve. Her reasoning was strange, and no one understood it. She had already submitted to the Xie family, becoming one of them, and neither the people nor the property were hers to control. In this world, she didn't understand. After a commotion, Lin Molan miscarried in prison, and at 8 months, the injury left her unable to conceive again. The Xie family saw her true colors and kicked her out. Didn't you say you could live wonderfully without a man? The Xie family won't hold you back. Without money, unable to bear children, her reputation ruined, and her so-called strategist talents merely a figment of Xie JunHao's imagination. Lin Molan was nothing. She clung to Xie JunHao's leg, crying bitterly, and in the end, stayed. Still without status. The two lived like a resentful couple. One guarding the city gate, the other doing menial maid work, looking at each other with disdain. Pei Yunfan said he had a family to take care of. And that being commander of the Imperial Guard was too hated, so he was quitting. Can you bear to? I knew he had climbed to this position over a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. Power, status. No one could easily let it go. But he was an exception. Gently, he placed his hand on my swollen belly. The only thing I can't bear to lose is you. When the autumn wind rose, we moved our entire family south. As the carriage rumbled past the city gate, I lifted the curtain and saw a familiar figure. Back turned to the long street, hunched over, as quiet as a clay statue. It looked so much like Xie JunHao, yet not quite. Too thin. I didn't look long. Whether it was him or not, there was no need for a farewell. My first child took the surname Shin. It was Pei Yunfan who suggested it. To continue my deceased brother's lineage and ensure the Shin family line continued. My eyes reddened. Isn't that unfair to you? He touched his nose, lowered the silk screen. It's not unfair, we'll just have another one. After Pei Yunfan stopped being a commander, he became even more shameless. When we returned to the capital, it was already 5 years later. The city gate no longer had that person's figure. Passing by the Xie residence, the plaque had long been replaced. Now the residence of the new top scholar. Mother, what are you looking at? 5-year-old Qingqing tugged at my sleeve. 3-year-old Pei Wan also looked up at me. I withdrew my gaze. Nothing. At this moment, Pei Yunfan came out of the palace, sauntered over to me. Hoisted Qingqing onto his shoulder, took Pei Wan's small hand in his left. And extended his right hand to hold mine. A series of actions, smooth as flowing water. His hand was large and warm, slightly calloused, tickling. Like on our wedding day, when he took my hand and led me out of the mire. I asked, Pei Yunfan? He turned his head, his expression as it was, yes, it's me. The setting sun stretched our shadows long, for shadows, inseparable. This was the family I wanted.